The year 2023 began with a flicker of hope for peace in the Middle East. Negotiations were ongoing, and there was cautious optimism for a brighter future. This fragile hope, however, was shattered on October 7th. Hamas militants launched a surprise attack into Israel, killing over 1,200 people and taking hundreds hostage. The world watched in horror as the conflict escalated rapidly. Israel responded swiftly and decisively, launching airstrikes across the Gaza Strip. The conflict has raged ever since, trapping millions of civilians in a cycle of violence and despair. The images emerging from Gaza are heart-wrenching: devastated homes, overwhelmed hospitals, and terrified children seeking refuge in underground shelters. The conflict has exposed the deep-seated animosity and mistrust between Israelis and Palestinians. It has also highlighted the complex geopolitical dynamics in the region, where long-standing conflicts and power struggles continue to fuel instability. As the fighting enters its second year, the international community grapples with how to de-escalate the violence and find a path to a just and lasting peace. Every day, the death toll climbs. As of December 4th, 2024, over 44,500 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health. This includes thousands of civilians, women, and children. The Israeli military claims that over 17,000 of the Palestinian casualties were militants. On the Israeli side, the initial Hamas attack claimed the lives of over 1,200 people. The fate of the remaining hostages held in Gaza remains a source of immense anguish for their families and the entire nation. The ongoing rocket attacks from Gaza continue to instill fear and disrupt daily life for Israelis. These statistics, while staggering, fail to capture the true human cost of this conflict. Behind each number is a life lost, a family shattered, and a community forever scarred. The psychological trauma inflicted on both Israelis and Palestinians, particularly children, will have long-lasting consequences. The Gaza Strip, already impoverished and densely populated before the conflict, is now on the brink of a humanitarian catastrophe. The relentless bombardment has crippled essential infrastructure, leaving millions without access to basic necessities. Hospitals are overflowing with casualties, running desperately low on medical supplies and essential drugs. Food and water shortages are reaching critical levels. Families are forced to queue for hours at distribution points, often leaving empty-handed. The lack of clean water and sanitation facilities has increased the risk of disease outbreaks, further endangering the lives of vulnerable children and the elderly. The international community is struggling to deliver aid to those in need. The border crossings into Gaza are heavily restricted, and aid convoys face bureaucratic delays and security risks. The situation is a desperate race against time, as every hour that passes brings more suffering and pushes the already devastated region closer to the brink. The violence in Gaza has sent shockwaves throughout the region. The conflict has spilled over into Lebanon, where Israeli forces and Hezbollah have engaged in cross-border exchanges of fire. These clashes have resulted in civilian casualties and heightened tensions, raising fears of a wider regional escalation. The involvement of Hezbollah, a powerful Iran-backed Shia militia, adds another layer of complexity to the conflict. Hezbollah's rocket attacks into Israel and Israel's retaliatory strikes on Lebanon demonstrate the volatile nature of the situation and the potential for the conflict to spiral out of control. The international community is deeply concerned about the broader implications of the Gaza conflict. The instability in the region threatens to further destabilize an already volatile Middle East, with potentially dire consequences for global security and stability. And Section 5. A land-scarred displacement and the ruins of war. The scale of destruction in Gaza is staggering. Entire neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble, leaving a trail of devastation in the wake of airstrikes and artillery fire. Homes, schools, hospitals, and essential infrastructure lie in ruins, a testament to the ferocity of the conflict. Over 90% of Gaza's population has been displaced at least once during this conflict. families huddle in overcrowded shelters, often lacking basic necessities like clean water, food, and sanitation. The psychological toll on these displaced families, particularly children, is immeasurable. The destruction of homes and infrastructure will take years, if not decades, to rebuild. The long-term impact on Gaza's economy, already fragile before the conflict, will be devastating. The international community faces the daunting task of not only providing immediate humanitarian aid, but also supporting Gaza's long-term recovery and reconstruction. Section 6. The perilous mission of aid workers caught in the crossfire. Aid workers are on the front lines of this crisis, risking their lives daily to deliver essential supplies and provide medical care to those in need. They operate in extremely dangerous conditions, facing constant threats from airstrikes, artillery fire, and the ever-present danger of being caught in the crossfire. Tragically, over 322 aid and health workers have been killed since the conflict began. These brave individuals, driven by a humanitarian imperative to alleviate suffering, have paid the ultimate price for their compassion and dedication. The targeting of medical facilities and aid workers is a grave violation of international humanitarian law. It is imperative for all parties to the conflict to respect the neutrality of aid organizations and allow them safe and unimpeded access to those in need. The international community must hold those responsible for these violations accountable. Section 7. A global call to action. The world responds. The international community has responded to the crisis in Gaza with an outpouring of humanitarian aid and diplomatic efforts. Governments, international organizations, and NGOs are working tirelessly to provide food, water, medical supplies, and shelter to the millions affected by the conflict. There have been repeated calls for a ceasefire from world leaders and international bodies, urging both sides to lay down their arms and engage in meaningful dialogue. The United Nations has been actively involved in mediating between the parties, but a lasting ceasefire remains elusive. However, the international community is not united in its approach to the conflict. There are divisions over the root causes of the conflict, the role of Hamas, and the legality of Israeli settlements in the occupied territories. These divisions often hinder efforts to find a lasting solution. Section 8. Negotiating a fragile peace towards a solution. While the fighting continues, there are ongoing efforts to find a political solution to the conflict. Hamas and Fatah, the two main Palestinian factions, have been engaged in negotiations to reconcile their differences and form a united front. These talks are crucial for establishing a unified Palestinian leadership that can effectively negotiate with Israel. A key issue under discussion is the future governance of Gaza and the role of the Palestinian Authority in managing the territory after the conflict. However, the path to peace is fraught with obstacles. Deep mistrust, conflicting interests, and the complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict pose significant challenges to finding a lasting solution. The international community must remain actively engaged in supporting dialogue and confidence-building measures between the parties. Section 9. The Uncertain Future. Hopes for a Lasting Peace. As 2024 draws to a close, the future of Gaza and its people hangs in the balance. The conflict has exacted a devastating toll, leaving behind a trail of death, destruction, and profound suffering. The path to peace remains long and arduous, but there is always hope. The resilience of the human spirit, even in the face of unimaginable adversity, offers a glimmer of hope. The international community must not waver in its commitment to finding a just and lasting solution to this intractable conflict, one that ensures the human rights and dignity of both Israelis and Palestinians. The dream of a future where Israelis and Palestinians can coexist peacefully in a secure and prosperous region may seem distant, but it is a dream worth striving for. Only through dialogue, empathy, and a shared commitment to peace can we hope to break the cycle of violence and build a brighter future for generations to come.